To our City Council meeting, Tuesday, August 7th. We'll call this meeting to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Councilman Ledford.
Please stand and place the flag and render the proper salute. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chair, it is my honor to introduce a dear friend of mine, a constituent, Director of Career Development for the City of Chattanooga, a fantastic and spiritual leader in this city, and to come and say a few words for us. If you would, I'd like you to welcome Dr. David Banks.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day. Father, we continue to speak peace over this city. We pray that every citizen truly has an opportunity to enjoy a high quality of life in this city. Father, we cover the Mayor Andy Burke, for his vision and leadership. And Father, we cover this City Council, that they will continue to work together and truly have wisdom and direction as they govern this city. So we commit this night to you, and we speak blessings over it. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Banks.
All right, then have a motion to approve the minutes? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you very much. We have no special presentations, so Madam Clerk, let's get to ordinances 5A, please.
An ordinance to amend the charter of the City of Chattanooga and all acts, ordinances, and other charter provisions amendatory thereof pursuant to the provisions of Article 11, Section 9 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee, Home Rule Amendment, so as to change the city charter by amending Title 4, Chapter 1 related to city court by deleting sections 4.1 through 4.9 and substituting in lieu thereof sections 4.1 through 4.3.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilwoman Burrs.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you. B, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a portion of the 200 block of Delawana Terrace to allow for construction of a future development as detailed on the attached map subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Henderson.
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you. C, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning the unopened and unnamed right-of-way between the 4300 block of Guild Trail and the 4300 block of Ox Highway to allow for construction of a retaining wall and adjustment of property lines as detailed on the attached map subject to certain conditions.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve.
All right. Thanks, sir. I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you. Takes us to ordinances first reading. Let's go to 6A, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a portion of the 1500 block of Sinclair Avenue at 1531 Sinclair Avenue to allow for construction of a future development detailed on the attached map subject to certain conditions.
Move to approve.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you. B, please.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 11, Section 11381 relating to vending on public property, and Chapter 20, Article 7, Sections 20 through 146, 2146 through 2153 relating to mobile food units.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out that in the revised version, it does contain that the City of Chattanooga shall review the impact of this ordinance after 1 year.
Very well. Thank you, sir. Councilman Gilbert?
Also in this ordinance, I think it's where certain sections of the city will not be under this. Can they read that out to make sure people know, understand that?
Yes, sir. It is specifically in an area of the city that is designated. Let me get my code section up here just a second. I'm sorry.
Pull your mic.
I'll get you. Well. Hang on for your lawyer a minute.
Mr. Chair, I can't hear anything.
Nobody's saying anything,
Nobody's
Franklin.
saying anything.
No. When they're talking, there's,
Oh.
when they're talking, I can't hear anything.
How do you know there's talking?
There are specific zones that are involved in the city. Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you now.
All right. Yes, sir. Good. The zones in the city that are involved will be set by the Director of Open Spaces here. And there are valid zones in the city that would include parks. They would not allow someone in the 21st century waterfront area along Riverfront Parkway between Market Street Bridge and Old Giatti Bridge, on First Street along the sidewalk connections between Walnut Street and Market Street, adjacent to First Street steps, on the Walnut Street Bridge and its approaches to the north and south between Fraser Avenue and Second Street, on the Holmberg Bridge, and on the city-owned property adjacent to Hunter Museum. There are 7 locations that they are allowed on. It's the approach to the Walnut Street Bridge south of Fraser Avenue, the approach to Walnut Street Bridge along the east side of Walnut Street, the approach to Walnut Street Bridge along the south side of Walnut Street, the approach to the First Street steps to the east of Market Street, and an area to the west of the Passage, an area of Ross's Landing north of Chestnut Street intersection with Riverside Drive, and an area of Riverside Drive near the steps going down to the riverboat dock. Those are the areas that would be permitted, I believe, under the ordinance as you're looking at it.
Good, Councilman? All right, seeing no further lights, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you very much. Next item, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the waiver of all fees for the 5K walk run for lupus nonprofit ZIA 1081 Order of Eastern Stars event at Blue Goose Hollow on Saturday, September 22nd, 2018, for the total amount of $1,000.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you. B, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a donation agreement in substantially the form attached with JWM Chattanooga LLC for the acceptance of the donation of approximately 1,471 square foot parcel located at 5061 Summit Spring Way, identified as tax map number 131099.12, on which a monument has been erected with a commemorative plaque of the Summit community and their ancestors, and for the mayor to execute all documents necessary for the acceptance of the parcel with an approximate value of $3,200.
Councilwoman Burrs, followed by Councilman Gilbert.
Move approval. This is a very important thing, and I'm proud of the Summit community.
Second.
All right, thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you. C, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic and Community Development to accept, if awarded, the 2018 Great Urban Parks Campaign Grant sponsored by the National Recreation and Park Association, NRPA, to be applied to the Lynbrook Park project in the amount of $300,000.
Councilman Byrd, followed by Councilwoman Coonrod.
Move to approve.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you. D, please.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointment of Lee Helena to the Historic Zoning Commission.
It's a pleasure of the council. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. E, please.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointments of David Hudson and Jim Williamson to the Form-Based Code Committee.
Councilman Henderson.
Move for approval.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. F, please, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the Chattanooga Police Department along with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department to apply for the fiscal year 2018 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant Program, which runs from October 1, 2018 through September 30, 2021 through the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs for an amount of $92,420 for the Chattanooga Police Department, for an amount of $43,445 for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, for a total amount of $135,865.
Councilman Henderson, followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. G, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into an agreement with HDR Engineering, Inc. for professional services related to contract number W17015-101 MBWWTP Tank Safety Upgrades, a non-consent decree project for an amount not to exceed $191,900.
All right, Councilman Henderson.
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. H, please.
A resolution to approve change order number 2 for Brown and Caldwell relative to contract number W12021-101 South Chickamauga Creek 5 Sub-Basin SSES, a consent decree project for an increased amount of $25,560 for the revised contract amount of $1,100,192.50.
Councilwoman Burrs, followed by Councilman Gilbert.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. I, please.
A resolution authorizing the award of contract number M18001-201 to West Roofing Systems, Inc. of Tunnel Hill, Georgia, replacement roofing system for Warner Park Maintenance Building in the amount of $42,975 with a contingency amount of $5,000 for an amount not to exceed $47,975.
Councilman Byrd.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. J, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute a consent to assignment of all purchase orders for vendor number 867412 for AMAC Foster Wheeler and Infrastructure, Inc. to Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions, Inc. relative to the described purchase orders.
Councilman Mitchell.
Move approval.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. K, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute an agreement with Stephen D. Billingsley, DBA, Billingsley Architecture, relative to contract number P18001-101, limited renovations at Police Annex for an amount not to exceed $36,400.
Councilman Mitchell, followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you very much. That's the last item on our agenda, which takes us to purchases. Ms. Woodard.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The first three purchases for your consideration are on behalf of Public Works tonight. The first being a purchase of Toro mowing equipment for golf courses to be awarded to Smith Turf and Irrigation in a total amount of $187,409.14. Second, a blanket contract renewal for grounds maintenance for the Riverwalk extension to be awarded to Images Landscape Service, Inc. in an estimated annual amount of $100,000. Third, a new blanket contract for custodial services for the Riverwalk extension to be awarded to Jana King of Chattanooga in an estimated annual amount of $45,000. And next, on behalf of the Information Technology Department, we have a new blanket contract for OnBase and EIS products to be awarded to Highland Software, Inc. in an estimated annual amount of $85,000. And finally, on behalf of the Youth and Family Development Department, we have first a blanket contract renewal for food and kitchen supplies to be awarded to Institutional Wholesale Company, Inc. in an estimated annual amount of $50,000. And finally, a blanket contract renewal for commercial food services to be awarded to YMCA in the estimated annual amount of $307,500.
Thank you, Ms. Woodard. What's the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Thank you, Ms. Woodard.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes us to other business, and this evening we do have a few items. Oh, excuse me, just a minute. Councilman Oglesby, did you need something right now?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to announce the appointment of Ms. Jasmine LeBlanc to the Multicultural Advisory Board.
Thank you, sir. Duly noted. Councilman Gilbert?
Yes, I just want to say that Rock the Block was very successful. We gave almost over 1,000 book bags and also food. They ate a lot of food. And we gave away every book bag we needed. Actually, we needed some more about 15 minutes prior to the time it shut down. We still needed more. So I'm asking for next year. If you have anybody that want to give book bags or uniforms, we'll start collecting it now for next year. But it was a very, very successful, and I want to appreciate everybody that came by to help out.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Coonrod?
Thank you, Chair. On August the 11th, this Saturday, the Eastdale community will have a community block party. I invite you guys to all come out, and Ariel will be there listening to people and sharing ideas about the Head Start program, the great works that she's doing in that area as well. So please come out, engage with the community, share knowledge with the community and best practices. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Byrd?
Thank you, Chair. This Friday at 10 o'clock, I would like to invite the staff and council to join us at the National Cemetery, where I will be reading a proclamation for wreaths across America, where we will place a wreath during Christmas time on all 43,000 tombstones at the National Cemetery.
Thank you, sir. I see no other lights. We're going to move to a couple of items that are on our agenda, other business. The first one has to do with approval of certifications for new grocery stores wishing to sell wine. Mr. Attorney, do you want to read those?
Yes, sir. Max Convenience Stores LLC, it's a DBA Circle K, 5710 Lake Resort Drives in District 3, and we need to have at least 5 signatures, at least required by the code in that regard. The second one that would be passed around is Max Convenience Stores LLC, DBA Circle K at 4900 Brainerd Road, and that is also in District 6. But those are the 2 that are required to be signed by at least 5 signatures of the council in an open meeting.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next item, as those are getting passed around on our agenda, is for form-based code appeals. The way this will work is we will have the applicant come up and give a 7-minute or up to 7-minute presentation on why they're appealing, what it is they're wanting to do. There will be, I guess, a 9-minute rebuttal for anybody in opposition, and then a 2-minute response, or a 9-minute response, and a 2-minute rebuttal to those cases. And the first case, Madam Clerk, would you read that A, please, and we will start with that one.
Case number 18-00012, Tennessee Valley Credit Union, Barry Gilly Construction Consultants, LLC, 101 West 20th Street, District 7.
Thank you, ma'am. If the applicant wouldn't mind coming up to the mic, you will have 7 minutes. Well, yeah, actually, Donna, do you want to present first?
Excuse me. Yes, sir. We have Dallas Rucker who will present the case. We have the slides here and your information. And I want to say at the 3 o'clock session, I know we had members of the media here, so I want to make sure that we go on record as correcting this. You all just approved 2 additional members of the Form-Based Code Committee, which brings a total to 9. Councilwoman Coonrod, you had some questions about the composition of the committee, and you asked me how many African Americans were on the committee, and I said 2. There actually are 3. The third one is William E. Smith, who lives at 913 Park Avenue. And I forgot about Mr. Smith because he's been on the Form-Based Code Committee since the beginning. He's a retired engineer, and I just want to make sure that I correct that for the record, that we have 3 African Americans of the 9 that are on the Form-Based Code Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Mr. Rucker, you have a presentation?
Yes, sir, I do. The
Bring
councilwoman
the
asked.
screen down if it needs to be.
The councilwoman asked earlier. Would you like me to read the names of the committee? No. Okay. All right. Thank you. Oh, no. Okay. First of all, council, I would like to just give just a little brief explanation as how this goes. As we know, form-based code is a code that covers a lot of the downtown areas. Has some additional
Point
requirements.
of order, I don't see a clock moving.
Yes, sir. We'll just do staff presentation first.
Okay.
No, you're fine.
Although
I'll time him myself.
I will be brief, I hope. Just a little background, form-based code, downtown, about urban form and how we're trying to maintain that in the downtown area, created some different requirements. It's just additional zoning, new zones for the downtown area. When someone wants to do a project in that area, they come to our office. We are tasked to review that project for compliance with the form-based code. We have a staff member, Emily Dixon, that is dedicated to doing those, or talking to people about the projects they would like to do in the downtown area. She has the ability to do a few modifications, minor modifications, as discussed in the code. If there are modifications above what staff can approve, it goes to what we referred to as a form-based code committee. Then they would consider what are called major modifications within the form-based code. The committee hears those cases, and if the party feels aggrieved by the decision, they have the ability to bring that forward to the council, and that's where we are at this point in time. So I will get into the first case. Earlier, before you guys got back in here, I went around and laid a committee report. Basically, I would just like to highlight the stuff at the beginning here. The first case is 18-00012, 101 West 20th Street. The applicant is Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union. Credit Union. The project description is a new bank and a drive-through at that location. The hardship is an unusual shape. There are 6 major modifications being requested here. The first is reduction in frontage, which requires 80% of the front property line to be covered by building. Their proposal is 44%. Reduction in frontage on the side streets. This lot covers 3 streets. 40% on the side streets, and there is what the requirement, and they're achieving 37. Reduction in primary parking setback from 30 to 15 feet. Reduction in the number of stories from the required 2 to 1 story. And increase the side setback from 15 feet maximum to a maximum of 120 feet on the right side, and 15 feet requirement to a maximum of 59 feet on the left side. Now, those are the highlights of that presentation I've given you and what's shown up here. Let me go, let's see if we can get down to, there it is. There's the site. As you can see, it's fronts on 3 streets. Therefore, the requirement of frontage on 3 streets. As part of that process, they're required to have a public meeting with the community. There's a staff report again, and there are the code references right from the form-based code that reference these items I've talked about earlier. Other than that, are there any questions at this time, and I'll turn it over to the applicant.
I see no questions. Let's hear from the applicant at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Todd Fortner. I am President and CEO of Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union. I'm going to be presenting on behalf of the credit union. We have Barry Gilly's name up there, but I'll be doing the presentation. To my left here, Karen Hennepin and Tammy Zumbrum are setting up some visuals to show the location and the branch that we are proposing. They are the designated Vanna Whites of the credit union. They wanted me to make sure I pointed that out. We're coming to you with what we think is a very unique circumstance for the credit union. We've been in the business 82 years in Chattanooga. We serve over 140,000 members in the Tennessee Valley. Headquartered here in Chattanooga, headquartered 350 employees, the bulk of which are on Chestnut Street. And that's really the impetus of what started that. We moved our headquarter building out of the 715 Market Street in terms of the administrative offices at the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018. And that has given us an opportunity to redevelop the 715 Market Street branch, which is in the center of the city. And we still have a branch in the bottom of that facility, but we have no administrative offices any longer on the second and third floor. So what we're proposing to do is to build a branch on 20th Street to relieve the pressure that we have that's on the Market Street branch. And in order to build the branch, we're asking for these variances. Without this branch, we're going to be unable to redevelop the 715 Market Street area. We propose that the combination of this development and the fact that we'll have a full-service financial institution on the south side of town gives a good reason for the variance request that we're asking for from the council. The building at 715 Market Street is in the center of an area that River City has proposed over $250 million in revitalization projects. And in a study that they had done in 2013, our location was identified as crucial to being able to increase all of the investment that they feel that can come into the city center. And we were identified as a location where if a parking garage was implemented, that the city would really explode in growth. So we're trying to work toward that end, but we have to have a physical location for our members who do business with us downtown to go to. And so we identified this lot on the 20th Street that we could help serve us while we got the redevelopment done on 715 Market. We do nearly 200,000 transactions annually at our downtown branch. So there's no possible way for us to leave the Market Street branch without having another location to serve our members. We've looked high and low for property in order to accomplish this, and we were lucky enough to find this branch on this location on 20th Street. But because of the form-based code, we're in a bit of a predicament. The code would essentially require us to build a 20,000 square foot building, which is just not economically feasible. We've searched high and lows for solutions where we can comply with the code and still be able to have a branch there. But because of the shape, the unique design of the lot, there's no way that we can build a building and have enough parking. If we build a building to the code, we would have to share it with tenants. But there would be no parking for our members who are doing business with us because of the layout of the lot. We're a very heavy consumer-based business. We, unlike a lot of the commercial banks in town, we are very consumer-driven. And if you've ever been to one of our branches, you can see, particularly on a Friday or on the first or a third of the month, we do very, very heavy volume, and we require a lot of parking. And we also have drive-through locations that are very popular. About 30% of our transactions in downtown are done through our drive-through. So we have to have adequate space on a lot to accommodate the stacking that's required for a drive-through so that we don't back up into the street. And we were lucky enough to find this piece of property that could accommodate that. So we're asking for the council to consider approving our variances. If we're able to build this location, then it opens up the possibility that we will redevelop 715 Market Street and turn essentially what is a $3 million piece of property into a $7, $10, or $12 million piece of property on the tax rolls. And in addition, the lot on 20th Street has been vacant for, our understanding, is more than 30 years. and we'll turn that into a income-producing piece of property for the tax rolls. In accordance with the form-based code, we also had a community meeting. John Merritt, our VP of Marketing, can tell you what the feedback was from the community as we had that community meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a neighborhood meeting we attended with Barry Gilly from Construction Consultants. We held the meeting on May the 7th, which was a few days prior to our variance request. We had good attendance. It was a positive meeting. We're probably about 14 or 15 people there. Several of the people there were actually members of the credit union, folks from the neighborhood. Positive feedback. We had one gentleman who questioned what type of plants and landscaping that we were going to put in the area to be sure that we were sensitive to what would do well in an urban environment. And I actually offered for him to come and help me at that point and pick the stuff out. So then we had another gentleman who asked if the branch was going to look like the other Tennessee Valley Credit Union branches. And you can see from the illustration, the rendering that we've given, this is a different design. It's actually one that we feel would be in keeping with the feel of the neighborhood and what is trying to be done in the South Side. And then we had one gentleman who expressed opposition and just felt like that this was not in keeping with the code. So, but all in all, it was a very positive meeting, and we were glad to be there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Just in time. All right.
Don't go too far.
Yeah, you may not want to. I see a light. Councilman Ledford, do you have a light? Okay. Councilman Oglesby.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I've seen in these notes is, and I don't know if it's you or the applicant was, form-based code doesn't provide for unique applications such as a bank with a drive-through. The unique application does not fit within the requirements of the form-based code. Could you elaborate on that statement? It's, I guess
It is, which page is it on?
I believe it's on the second page. I got a couple of documents here. I was looking.
Oh, reasons for denial, that was, I don't see it. The key findings was from staff, and the reasons for denial, quotes from the form-based code committee. Is it on the second page there, you say? On page 3.
On this one? Yeah.
Applicant's presentation, is that the one that? Well, I'm sorry, I brought the wrong one back up here.
That's okay.
No wonder I didn't see what you were looking at. Thought it was done. I do not know whose quote that is.
Okay. Well, let me frame it this way then. Does form-based code account for any unique situation like banks or maybe some other commercial development?
I think Mr. Bridger may be able to help me. Is he gone? The form-based code allows drive-throughs.
Yes.
Yes. I mean,
But the key is that you're limited on the number of curb cuts you can have. So usually access has come from the rear, and you're trying to limit the number of new curb cuts. I'm not aware of a specific exclusion of a drive-through as part of, as long as it's controlling how you access the property.
Okay, so what I'm seeing from the map, the design that I have on the documents presented is, and I saw where you can have, where it was supposed to be one way in and one way out. And I'm looking at a rendering from the site plan that was sent to me over the weekend.
okay, there's.
Oh, yeah.
That's what was presented to the.
Okay, so what about this design does not because I'm a visual person, that does not make it compliant to form-based code. I see where it's close to the street, there's
Well,
greenery.
okay.
Yeah.
As I understand it, there's an 80% street frontage requirement, so the front of the building would have to cover 80% of the street frontage. The side streets have a requirement for 40%, so the building would have to go back 40% on the side streets, Long Street and William Street. And then parking is supposed to be set over. But the building, it's just a small building on a large lot. I was not in the form-based code hearing. They talked about subdividing the property, so you've only had one corner and not two. I mean, there's all kinds of things. But yes, no, that is a requirement of that particular zone.
Okay. What is
The
current-
UCX4.
Okay, what is the current makeup as far as what kind of development is on 20th Avenue now that would really make this look out of place? I mean, I've gone up that street many, many times since it is in my district, and just tell me, how would this change the look of that area?
You're asking for an opinion now, Councilman? It's not. I mean, a lot of that's never been developed. If you want the form-based code requirements to apply, then as things get redeveloped, they would meet this requirement. But that's probably going to be very similar to stuff that's out there now. Actually, most of them have parking lots in the front. But, I mean, yes, the code's only been changed for 2 years, so there's probably not a whole lot of development. That's...
Okay. I'll yield right now to one of my fellow council persons.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay, Franklin? You didn't hear a word I said, did you, sir?
I didn't, because my wife asked me something, I listened to her.
I would absolutely. I've always said you were a smart man. Can you hear me okay, seriously?
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Quick question for the applicant. Do you currently own the property?
We do not currently own it. We have an option to purchase.
Option to purchase, okay. Are there any members in the community that were at the meeting? Are they here tonight? Not. Okay. Thank you for that. So, quick question, and this is going to go back to staff. Mr. Bridger, this might be a question for you. Could this not exist in C2?
Yes, it could. Well, I say actually probably UGC, not C2, because with C2, as far as a setback, if it was C2, it need to be set back a little more from the street, and C2, 25 feet. But UGC would allow that configuration because I would say the key though is your building has to be at least 18 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as building, you could have the first floor, first finished floor elevation 18 feet, it would work in UGC. So I also want to note that's another option for council to consider. I don't think you could approve of rezoning at this session, but if that's something, that's another procedural option if this is what the design that council seems appropriate.
Okay, so let's rephrase that. Don't go away too soon.
Sure.
This plan would work perfect in UGC.
As long as the height of the building was addressed, and you have maybe a couple clarifications. The front facade needs to have at least 30% openings,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you also have to have a pedestrian entrance on the front. So the building positioning would work. You just need to have an 18-foot minimum floor-to-ceiling height, and you would have to have a pedestrian entrance on the primary street.
What's the square footage of this building? Under 12,000?
Yes, we're talking 1,500 to 2,000 square foot building.
Oh, okay. This is all right. This is a pretty small building, so real small building. Okay. So if this would fit, if we went to UGC and kept form-based code without variances and this process, would we be looking at variances from that point?
assuming he has a pedestrian entrance on the front,
Right.
30% openings on the front,
Mhm.
18-foot floor to ceiling height, and the building is positioned as is, I'm not aware of a variance he would need to get. But again, that's just looking at the map.
So when you say pedestrian access to the front, a sidewalk going into a front door?
Yep.
Okay.
A door on the 20th
Okay.
Street.
That's something to think about.
It is something to think about. One other point, Mr. Chair, before I yield the floor. We're seeing a lot of, here recently, projects where some of the recent zoning has come into place. Form-based code is what, a year and a half now? We've just went through a year revision. We have UGC on Broad Street, and we have development that's wanting to happen. And I just want to make a point as I'm starting to feel we're kind of tripping over ourselves sometimes with not seeing the forest for the trees, so to speak, because we're getting in a way of development. And I know that we need to stick to the plan, and I understand it, and I appreciate all the hard work that's going into it. But at the end of the day, people who want to spend the money and develop good projects that help the community, we seem to be coming at an impasse with some of the things that we've done. And I want to point out that they're relatively new. So I just want to make that point. I really would like for us to possibly consider maybe revisiting this under UGC and to see if that's even a possibility for further discussion. And I'll yield the floor.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilwoman Burrs?
So let me make sure I've got this straight. We're cutting down the number of curb cuts. Is that correct? Well, it says there's 4 existing curb cuts, and this development will utilize only 2 of them. So we're cutting back on curb cuts.
Correct.
Okay. This property is abutting a protected zone. Tell me about that. Oh, what was that picture you just put up?
Well, that's the existing site. You can see the curb cuts along 20th Street.
Back up. There was something with houses. Is that? Oop. All right, right there.
That's the back.
Okay, so this is a neighborhood, and tell me where the bank wants to go.
Well, the bank that's a view, that's really a view of the sign, because that's a requirement to post that sign as a meeting. I mean, the bank would go.
It's a neighborhood bank? Is that, I'm trying to get the whole picture.
Right in here.
We don't have the picture.
It is a branch. It's a credit union branch.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's in the middle of a neighborhood. Does any?
Well, right next to this location is Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and on the other side is a doggy daycare center, and Rolade is an industrial supply company that backs up to the lot there.
All right, and on the drawing around the rendering, if you could put that back up, are those sidewalks around the bank? Yeah, are those sidewalks?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So there could be a front entrance.
There is one.
Yes, on the rendering there is a front entrance. On the rendering on the easel.
Okay, I'm responding to the comment, they would have to have a front entrance, and I'm trying to figure out where they don't have a front entrance looking here.
That was a requirement if they rezoned it to UGC.
So they've got it? You may not be able to see these drawings, but this shows a front entrance. I'm just trying to clear me up.
Yeah, yes. Yes.
I don't see a problem.
That's the front entrance, right? Okay, so what are we talking? Okay, Vanna. So I guess what I'm trying to get my arms around is what do they not have for UGC?
We're talking about UCX. What was it? UCX 4.
Huh?
Dennis, were you going to respond to that?
We're talking about UCX4 is what we have currently in the form-based code. UGC would be outside of the form-based code requirement. The
Okay.
major modifications, if you look on the sheet you have there.
I'm following Councilman Ledford.
Okay.
And I thought I heard you say, because I'm not an expert on all of this, that they needed to go higher, they needed a front door, and was there something else?
For UGC.
For UGC.
For form-based code, they would also have to go higher. It requires 2 stories.
She's speaking just about UGC standards. She's trying to make sure. She's
I'm
just
sorry.
speaking stiffly about UGC standard. What's the, based on the rendering you've got, do you know what the estimated height of that structure is, finished floor? So that's
Roughly 25 feet, yeah.
So that's more than 18 feet.
So that's more, so that's okay, right? And the front door is there, that's okay. Is there something else that it looks like it meets all those requirements?
I am not aware of an issue, and having just done the South Broad review, I'm pretty fresh on some of this. So I'm not aware of a problem in terms of particularly the building positioning, the curb cuts, the parking. Assuming it's being proposed to be built as what's shown on there on that illustration, it looks like it meets the standards to me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on. Councilman Henderson.
So it's my understanding you have not purchased the property, correct?
That is correct.
And were you aware that it was in the form-based code when you purchased, or when you, I guess, maybe is it under contract?
It is under contract.
Okay. Were you aware that it was in the form-based code?
We were, yes.
Put it under contract?
We were, yes.
And did you understand or realize the requirements of the form-based code on a building at that point?
Not fully, no, we did not.
Okay. So nobody really did some due diligence as to what it meant to be in the form-based code?
Well, we had a general idea of the form-based code, but we didn't do the due diligence to the detail that we're asking of the variance, obviously, here. And plus, we were under the impression that there would be variances that would be granted that we could come forth and ask for. So
who gave you that impression?
Well, we know that the form-based code has a variance committee, and that many people have gone before them and gotten variances. So to say we didn't do due diligence, I mean, we didn't buy the property. So we're going through that due diligence as part of the process right now.
Okay, thank you. John, do we have a map of the form-based code area? I mean, I'm trying to figure out where in relation, like, is it on the...
This is approaching the southern edge. It goes down to I-24 is the boundary to the south. It goes all the way to 21st Street. This is on 20th Street.
We're right on the edge.
You're close. You're about a block away. You're about a block north.
What I'm trying to figure out is, so we rezone it to UGC and it's in compliance, or we give them variances in the form-based code? Which one? I mean, I don't.
I'm going to give you my concern, frankly, just something to think about. I'll put it this way, a consequence is what's unique about this site. So whatever variances you grant for this would also apply to every other property in the form-based code area. So I think that's what you have to be careful about. What's unique about this property? It's not about the development program, what's being desired to be built, but what's unique about this property. So when you make a variance decision, I see Phil nodding his head, it's about the unique conditions of this site, this location, not a desired development program.
What do you mean the unique conditions of this?
So, Phil, you'll...
Fill me in on what the unique conditions are.
Sir?
Currently, the ordinance at section 38596C4 has requirements for any type of major modification. That was what was requested of the Form-Based Code Committee in connection with this case. And what he's talking about is there are requirements that the council has imposed on the committee that says that if you're going to grant a major modification, which is what is being requested in this case, that the physical conditions of the property have something like steep slopes, there's a floodplain drainage issue, there's some irregular lot shape that would require that, and the applicant has to show how they are complying with that. That's the issue. And then if that is met, then the Form-Based Code Committee can grant a major modification. If it's not, then it comes to you all on an appeal, and that's where we are.
I mean, so really in essence, there's not a unique characteristic. This is just a tabletop flat piece of ground that
Yes, sir.
there's no reason not to meet these recommendations. Is that what?
I think that was the concern of the
That's
committee.
the
Yes,
crux
sir.
of the matter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So being on the southern border, are we infringing then on the form-based code, or? So now I understand your concern about, well, which I.
It doesn't have a geographic limitation.
Right.
It's the merits of what's being presented and the site context. So anybody else could come back later if there's an appeal to a decision, and if you had a similar situation, you've got precedent.
So, okay, so let me go back. Tell me your name again. I'm sorry. The applicant.
Todd Fortner.
Did anyone give you some suggestions on how you could maybe tweak your building or your layout and maybe not have so many variances? I mean, obviously these are pretty major variances.
Well,
did anybody give you some suggestions on what would help bring it a little closer to being in compliance and maybe passing some variances?
Yes, we've had several discussions with different folks about how to approach this, and the 80% frontage requirement, we're at 44, and the 2-story requirement, below the square footage of any proposed building up to 15 to 20,000 square foot, which is just not economically feasible for the type business that we're talking about here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Ledford, do you have another?
I'll yield to Mr. Henderson.
No.
Mr. Bridger, question for you, sir, please. If the variance is denied, what is the time frame for reapplication for a UGC?
I mean, they could, it's the fourth Monday every month, so they would need to get it in for, if there's an application made in August, it would be heard at the October PC in front of y'all in November.
So our waiting period does not apply?
Say again now?
Our waiting period?
I think this is, I'm going to defer to Phil. I don't think so. This would apply to that.
No, this is a different request here.
Different
Yes.
than we're, right.
Yes.
And that's what I was hoping you'd say. So if denied, UGC could be applied for immediately?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Oglesby.
Yes, would y'all be amenable to this as an option, the UGC?
Well, the contract we're under could get out from under us. I mean, you can only do due diligence for so long, and we've already gone through the appeals process with form-based code. I believe we're probably 120 days out from when we originally did the contract. The seller would have every right to, at this point, sell the property and to someone other than us.
Councilman, still you?
Unfortunately, I really like this project, and based on what the attorney has mentioned about setting the precedents, and it really, I thought this could be a good economic engine for that area, but unfortunately, I'm gonna have to deny.
Excuse me,
All right.
can the
Yeah.
opposition have a time to speak?
You know what? I'm more than happy to allow opposition an opportunity to speak. You should have some time. Who would like to speak on the opposition side?
I would, and perhaps others.
Please come forward. Doesn't matter. Ladies or time.
My name is Craig Cronenberg, and I live at
Mr.
244
Cronenberg, just-
West 18th Street.
Mr. Kronberg, just one moment. It's 9 minutes for opposition. Thank you.
I won't fill
Please
that.
go ahead.
I live at 244 West 18th Street, about 2.5 blocks from the site. I expressed a negative opinion about the credit union project online and received a question, why do you feel it's wrong for the site? My reply, mainly because it is suburban, commercial prototype on an urban lot. The city adopted the form-based code and it strengthened the urban design guidelines set forth for the C3 zone that encouraged good design. Our neighborhood was all C3. This site is now form-based code CX3. That means commercial mixed use with 3 stories maximum. Generally, the guidelines are build a continuous street edge with no or limited setbacks and be 2 stories minimum. This project is 1 story and occupies less than half the property frontage. Multi-story mixed-use projects are encouraged. This project is a single use. I am not against the credit union. My family is a member of the credit union. I think it should be a credit union with other uses that anchor this very prominent site. The project, as designed, is opportunistic, a land bank that will benefit from rising land values over time. The bank estimates that the project cost is 4 times the value of the land. In comparison, the townhouses at 18th and Cowart Street cost 12 times the land value. This is an example of project as placeholder. A project that followed the form-based code could include the credit union, retail, office, or housing. Cowart Place has some office. It could benefit from more, or it could incorporate housing. Cowart Place has rough and gaping edges with vacant lots and underutilized buildings on the periphery. This site is one of them. It deserves a project that conforms to the code, and I ask the council to deny the request for variance and place principles before influential institutions. Now, I'm extemporizing this because I got to hear what the proposer has said, and it is disingenuous to say that you cannot fit more on that site and get the parking. I'm an architect. I do these projects all the time. I'd like to read an email I received from James Holland, who is the president of the Southside Cowart Place Neighborhood Association and who's out of town. He was my neighbor at 18th and Cowart. I remember in the meeting the bank hosted with the neighbors a few things. They said that they needed a site between downtown and Fort Oglethorpe, and that's a large area to find a suitable site. Second, they said that they had not explored any options in existing or new developments, just this one site. These are concerns for me because it shows a lack of due diligence and participation to make the form-based code work. Furthermore, from the city's perspective, to grant variances to a developer who shows a lack of due diligence and simply comes first asking for a number of variances shows a lack of commitment to the city's part to uphold the form-based code. In other words, it sends a message that the city lacks any real investment in the form-based code. We can't create the city we want if our commitment to the form-based code is so weak. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak in opposition? Please come on forward. What were we down to? We were down to what, 4 minutes? No. Please just state your name.
Okay. I'm Jackie Miller. I've got a project right now at 2719th Street that we're building. We're not using bank money to build ours. We're building it with private funds from our own self, our savings, and we're looking at it as an investment. And the reason we're there to start with is when we heard about the form-based code, we wanted to invest in that. We wanted to be part of that. And I'm not opposed to a bank either. I mean, I'm not opposed to a bank. But if the property doesn't fit what they're wanting to do, they either build to the property, build a building that fits the property, or find a smaller property and let someone else that can use that property come in and help our neighborhood. As far as I'm looking at your clock. Sorry. As far as the bank goes and everything like that, if they're asking for that many variances, and we asked for a few, I don't think we did any. We went to our architects and we built a property. We built a building that fit the property. We didn't get the property to build, for the building. So we are trying to stay in code. We love what's going on down there. We don't want to see it, basically people come in and get variances, and then next thing you know, the place that we're proud of, that we're building, becomes an eyesore because it doesn't match anything else. So that's my position, and I hope these guys find them a good piece of property or come up to code on this one. But anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other opposition who would like to speak? All right, seeing none. Councilman Oglesby.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to.
Hey, Councilman, just one moment
Sure.
before you do that. Mr. Fortner, you have 2 minutes to respond to opposition if you would like to take it. You're not required to, but it is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the council for considering our proposal today. Just one response about being disingenuous on the parking. We also have a drive-through stacking issue that we have to handle. So the requirements are very unique on a financial institution, but I can see the writing on the wall here, but I appreciate everybody considering our proposal here. And we certainly appreciate what the form-based code is going to do for the city. And we were hopeful that we could to accomplish something here to help development in the city center. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Oglesby.
Mr. Chair, at this time, if I may, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
You absolutely may. In that case, I will entertain any other motions on this item, as the previous motion to deny the appeal has been withdrawn. If there are no motions. All right, if there are no motions, this will still fail for lack of a second or lack of a motion.
Sure.
No. It's been withdrawn. So at this moment, there is no motion on this item on the table. Absolutely, Councilwoman.
Sir?
I'm okay with this. I missed my afternoon workout, so this is good. This gets it in for me.
So if I heard you correctly, there is no way you can meet the requirements of the form-based code on this piece of property without the variances.
Feasibly. There's no way we can feasibly meet the requirements without these variances.
I'm hearing people that are really interested in the neat things you're trying to do, but we don't want to abrogate form-based code. So I guess what I'm asking you, is there a win-win here? Or if there isn't from your part, then that's a decision. And then we have to make our decision. So it's really a straightforward question.
Yes, I can tell you, we looked at many designs to try and make this work without having to come down the road of appeals and form-based code, and we can't find it out right now, no.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gilbert. Mr. Fortner, just a moment.
How many square feet is the one on Highway 58?
That branch is about 3,500.
And how much is the one currently that you're asking for?
It's going to be between 1,500 and 2,000.
So it's impossible for you to try to build one similar to the one on 558 on this particular property?
3,500, we could probably feasibly do 3,500, but it still wouldn't come anywhere near satisfying the code requirements. Remember, the one on 58 is really a single story. The code requires a two-story and an 80% frontage, and this lot is really long and narrow, so the 80% frontage is very difficult.
You couldn't flip the building?
And not to get the 80% frontage, no.
On the sides?
No.
Couldn't. Okay.
Councilman? Good? All right, I see no lights, so at this time, we will move on to our next item. The appeal fails for lack of a motion. Madam Clerk, B, please.
Case number 18-00014, JW Holdings LLC, Adamson Developers LLC, 1002 East 10th Street and 1006 Fairview Avenue, District 8.
You guys ready? Okay. Yep. Case 18-0004. Form-based code zone is URD2. The hardship is lot size and dimension. The major modifications being asked for is reduction in the lot area from 3,000 square feet to 2,613 square feet on lots 1 and 10. The lot facing East 10th Street and the middle lot. A reduction of the primary setback on Fairview Avenue for lots 2 and 3 from 10 feet to 7. Reduction in rear setback from 25 feet to 9 feet on lots 1, 2, and 3. Reduction in parking setback from 8 feet behind the front plane of the house to 3 feet on lot 2 and 3. An allowance of vehicle to exit the property in a reversed orientation. Below there you can see there are the requirements within the code itself. Section 38-698, access and parking location, and D, that refers to a map. All vehicles, the second one, section 38-734, all vehicles must be, all parking must be designed to enter in a forward motion, and the URD residential zone requires a 3,000 square foot lot, and 3814 URD residential detached zone. The primary street has a minimum or average of 10 feet along the front, and then D, the rear common lot line, and that refers to this. This is where we get the 25-foot requirement. D, the rear common lot line or alley is a 25 feet off the rear. Those are the major modifications. I think Mike Price is representing the applicant. Or do you have any questions of me real quick?
No, I have no questions. We'll go ahead and hear from the applicant now. Thank you, Mr. Rucker.
And we have a PowerPoint presentation, if we could have that. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike Price with MAP Engineers representing Adamson Development with the proposed variance before the council this evening. I want to give a brief timeline that sort of gives you where we are today.
Hey, Mike.
Yes,
sorry
sir.
to interrupt you. Hold on just a moment. Can we get the 9-minute timer up, please?
7?
Sorry, 7. Thank you.
I'll be less than 7.
You're good. Just want to make sure we adhere.
Okay.
7 minutes, sorry. That was my fault. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you. So just a brief timeline as it relates to the proposed request. In November of 2017, the Adamsons requested to build 2 garden-style homes on this particular property, or 4 units. This request was taken to the MLK Neighborhood Association. The Neighborhood Association voted the request down. They said they didn't like to have 4 units in through here. They didn't feel like that was in keeping with the area. So the plan was revised, and we came back with 3 single-family homes. That'd be the next slide. I don't know how to work it. There we go. Okay, thank you. We go back to the next. Unless that was me that hit that. There we go. Okay. So was then revised to go 3 single-family homes, which you see here before you. It was taken back to the MLK Neighborhood Association. They had a meeting on February the 8th, and the vote was 15-7 in favor of this proposed layout that you see before you. This is then taken to the Planning Commission, where we were asking for a change in the form-based code. Planning Commission said, listen, before you go forward with this particular request, why don't you see if you can get a variance at the form-based code board. So we took it to the form-based code board, and they met and then did not give it the approval based upon the merits that we presented. So there are essentially 5 variances that are being requested. This is the current plan that you see here that we're asking for. The slight nuance is that between lots 1 and 2, we put the driveways side by side. Before, they were set up where they were always on the left-hand side as you look at this particular layout, but we put these 2 side by side and then put lots 2 and 3, put green space in between those. So essentially it's the same layout with the 3 what we had previously. So the 5 variances requested are as follows. There's a reduction of the minimum lot area from 3,000 square feet to 2,613 for 2 of the lots. The corner lot, which is adjoining the alley, is 3,294, which meets the requirements. So we got to looking at in the area. So this is, as you see here, existing lot sizes in the area. And you can see here in the lower portion of the site there on Fairview Avenue, this shows where the proposed development is located in purple. And you can see that there are already areas adjacent right directly across the alley. There's a 2,450 square foot existing lot. So what we're asking for is not out of character as it relates to lot sizes in the area. You also see there's a total of 11 lots in the URD2 zone that are less than what we're requesting in the MLK neighborhood area. So again, this is not out of keeping with what's found in the area and adjacent to the site. The second variance requested was reduce the front setback along Fairview from 10 to 7 feet. In the next exhibit B, what you will see here is that there are several homes already along Fairview Avenue that meet or have less than the required 10-foot setback. And so you see here we have 7 feet on 2 of these. There was a home that was previously on one of the lots where we're looking at development, which was essentially on the right-of-way. So this is in character with the area for the request that we're asking for as it relates to reduction in the front setbacks here along Fairview Avenue. Thirdly, we have a request to reduce the rear setback from 25 feet to 9 feet. So going back to the site plan, what we looked at here was to put screening, a hedgerow in through here, and trees that would bookmark basically the ends of the property in through here, to create a visual barrier between our development and the existing house that and garage that is behind us. Now, I would just point out that if you turn the house on Lot 1 facing 10th Street, the side setback requirement would only be 3 feet. So by going to this proposed development and putting the screening, we think that we're providing some additional screening and some separation in through here that presently doesn't exist in the area. If you look here at Exhibit B and you look at the homes that are located to the east of us here along 10th Street, you'll see that they are stacked just a few feet apart as it relates to how they're currently set in the site now. Fourth is a required setback of 8 feet behind the front wall plane of the home. So in other words, they want to have the ability to pull a car into a driveway and the house block it as you drive down the street. The current site plan that we have now meets that for lots 1 and 2. The problem that we run into is that we have 4 shared parking spaces off of an alley. I think when the form-based code was formed, no one really thought about the possibility of someone using an alley to put shared parking on. So I think that this honestly is a condition that was just never really considered when form-based code was written. Again, when a code is written, you're trying to foresee a lot of different elements, but you can't foresee them all, and I think this is one that just was not considered as a possibility of something that could be done. The fifth condition is to discourage back-out parking. So going back to Exhibit B, what I would point to is that you see 3 driveways that are located here on Fairview Avenue. Every one of these are single-car driveways where someone pulls in and has to back out. So what we're proposing is no different and not certainly out of character as it relates to the area based upon the 2 driveways that we're proposing. So that basically gives the synopsis of the 5 variances that we're requesting, and if there's any questions, be happy to answer those now at this point.
Mr. Price, I'm not seeing any lights at the moment. Okay. So I will, at this time, I'll ask if there is any opposition to this project that would like to speak. Yes, please come forward. You will have up to 9 minutes.
I'll read it, so I will not take up your time. Yeah, my name is William E. Smith, and my wife and I have been property owners and residents at 913 Park Avenue since November 2003. I'm here to recommend that the City Council deny this appeal for the case on Fairview Avenue and East 10th Street for the following reasons. And the sections I will be citing are the same ones that you used to approve the appeal or deny it. The Form-Based Code Section 38-6964 Code Modification identify the standards the FBC is intended to meet. 2 of those principles are related to protect and establish single-family residential areas from incompatible development and the impacts on adjoining properties. The application before you proposes to build 3 houses facing Fairview Avenue on property that included a single-family residence that faced East 10th Street. The adjacent property on East 10th Street currently faces East 10th Street. If you go between Central Avenue and Magnolia, there are 32 single-family residences on East 10th Street. There's only 1 residence located at East 10th Street and Magnolia that does not face East 10th Street. Therefore, the application to build with the houses facing Fairview Avenue is incompatible with the adjoining properties. Also, within the same form-based code section, the Form-Based Code Committee is charged with reviewing major modifications, approving or denying the request based on considerations that include some of the following: allowance for small or irregular lot shapes that make compliance to the standards physically impossible, and the applicant does not create this hardship. Well, we heard it mentioned about the lot size and having to turn a certain way. The applicant's request to reduce the setbacks in some instances from 25 feet to 9 feet and the reduction of the lot square footage are not hardships due to the lot shape, but rather hardships created by the applicant's plan to change the home's frontage to Fairview Avenue and the number of houses that are proposed. Second, the form-based code allows the applicant to present alternative means of compliance to the form-based code that are equal or exceed existing standards in achieving the form-based code principles. The applicant did not present
any alternative means of compliance with those. Contrary to the considerations in the form-based code, the applicant's request impacts adjacent property owners, the character of the area, and departs from the basic urban principle that buildings should directly front streets, and is incompatible with development with 98% of the existing residences on East 10th Street. In addition, the applicant has recognized that the existing development is fronting East 10th Street in case number 2018-0020 to the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. The applicant requested to rezone the same properties we're discussing today, to change it to urban residential detached, or rather urban residential detached 3 stories. That would allow duplexes and townhomes. This request has been before the Planning Commission since 2018 and is currently being deferred every 60 days. The status is contrary to the statement made by Mr. Adamson, documented in the 5/10/18 meeting, that they were no longer pursuing rezoning. So they're going for rezoning and they're also requesting this change. The Planning Commission staff report recommended the request for rezoning be denied. The recommendation to deny is due to the development not being compatible with adjacent detached single-family development formed for this area of the MLK neighborhood. I'm recommending that the City Council deny this appeal because of the incompatible development and impacts on adjoining properties, similar to the other reasons given for recommending the rezoning be denied. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Carol White, and I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I live about a block from this property with my husband. What's that? Here? Sorry. I live about a block from the property with my husband, who's also here today in opposition. I'm on the board of the M.L. King Neighborhood Association. So I'm not going to repeat everything that Mr. Smith so eloquently stated, and I agree with everything he said. I would like to clarify something about the 2 meetings that Mr. Adamson and his representatives had with our neighborhood, and that is that the statement that he made that the vast majority agreed with the 3 homes on that property. The way it was presented to us was 3 homes or 4 homes. So given that the majority of people who were at those meetings said they would go with the 3 over the 4 homes, I want to make clear that we are all very excited about having a new home or 2 homes on that property. It's been vacant for a long time. I think it would really add to the neighborhood. It's just this particular development is not in keeping with what we feel like the standards of the neighborhood should be. So I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. So just a couple of things that I would point out. As you look at this Exhibit B, you'll see here at 1006 Fairview Avenue, the previous home that's set here on the subject property, that particular house, actually all of the requirements or all the variances that we're asking, that house right there would have required to have constructed back. So what we have here are 2 existing lots. And if no variances are granted, you can't build on one of these lots under the current form-based code. So we have to have some sort of relief to be able to construct even 2 homes, because if we re-subdivide, you lose your status and you can't construct what we're proposing to do even with 2 homes. Secondly, I would point out, if you look at the site plan, you'll notice here that the corner lot at 10th and Fairview has a corner porch. So what we tried to do is to look at that particular house facing both streets, because we recognize that that was important based upon homes that are already on 10th Street, but also as it relates to Fairview. There was a discussion about not meeting or providing alternate means as it relates to some of the requests. Well, actually, we are. What we're providing is screening here along the back that presently is not required in the form-based code. And all the other variances that we're requesting, we've shown that there's precedence in the area, so we're not creating something new based upon what we're requesting. The request, yes, is before the Planning Commission to rezone, but the request to rezone is if we were to get that zoned, we're not looking at going 3 stories. It simply allows smaller lot size. We wouldn't have to therefore go for the lot size variance request. That was really the only reason looking at it. We don't plan on building 3-story homes. That would be out of character of the area. I would also point, if the commission sees the last page of the handout that I gave you, the RPA staff showed that the density adjoining residential properties to this particular site is 11 units per acre. So obviously it is a very dense area. So we're trying to be in keeping with that by placing the 3 houses that you see here. So hopefully with that, we've shown that we have met the requirements as it relates to precedent in the area, and also that we are providing alternate means as it relates to the one item that I think we might otherwise not be able to meet, which is the screening on the rear setback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Price, I got a couple questions for you. Would you run down your 5 variance requests for me again real quick? I got the 3,000 square feet to 2,600.
Right, so we're looking at going from from the 3,000 on 2 of the lots down to the 2,600 square feet.
Okay.
The setback along Fairview Avenue, we're asking to go from 10 feet to 7 feet.
Okay.
The third is that the rear setbacks would be reduced from 25 feet to 9 feet with the proposed screening that is provided. The fourth is required setback being 8 feet behind the home, and again, we meet that on lots 1 and 2. The issue is the 4 shared parking spaces that are on the alley. We don't meet that. The fifth one is that the on-site vehicle parking has to come in and out in a forward motion. So in other words, they don't want back out parking, but based upon what we saw in this area, we already have 3 driveways where that currently occurs there today.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Price.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, my next question is probably for Mr. Rucker.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Rucker, for those of us following form-based code and those who are kind of novice at it, some of this gets confusing because form-based code calls for density. I keep hearing that word repeated over and over and over again. Density, 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 density. But then when I see density, then all of a sudden it doesn't fit. So then someone reduces density, and it still doesn't fit. But the form-based code calls for density. So forgive me, but this form-based code's kind of complex. And are we dense or not dense? I mean, that's a rhetorical question.
Mr. Bridger may be able to explain that.
I mean, so
hey, I don't write them. We just enforce what we're given.
If I was looking at this and UGC preaches density, I go, oh.
Correct. Maybe we only want it.
A lot onto a lot. And
we just want it so dense because the regular R1 is 7,500 square feet,
sure,
and
sure.
3,000 is dense enough. I don't know, Mr.
Right. It just feels like the word UGC and density UGC, form-based code and density go completely hand in hand, except when it's actually proposed.
Maybe it should be.
And then it has a million complexities with it. So
density to a point. I don't know.
I guess so. I guess that's the trick. So I'm just that was my point. I just wanted to make.
I guess if
these cases get a bit confusing, density or not. And
didn't set some rule, we'd have 500 square foot lots. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's just okay, Mr. Chair. That's all. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, Councilman Byrd.
Mark Price, where you at? Oh, Price, you did Mike Price. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I got a lot of.
He's
love.
my famous cousin.
Yes, that's your cousin. Probably not for you. The drawings and what's going on. Not for you just yet. I'm sorry for pointing. Mr. Smith, Could you come up here for a second, please, sir? Could you bring up the current proposed application, the slides, please? Right. No, where's it go? It went away. You had it.
I think you had it right.
Yeah, you had it right a second ago. Yes, sir.
Yeah, site plan.
Go back to the, when we did, oh, there's a site plan in there too, isn't it?
Not that.
How about this one?
Yes, sir. It says.
Yeah, it's the window you drug off there.
It's the one you drug off.
There you go.
Exactly. It's the
Wrong
ones
one.
with the driveways next to each other. These two buildings are
Change it
connected.
That's
Right
it
there.
right there.
All right, Mr. Smith, when I look at this and I look at the research that he done, it looks like they're doing what's already exists. When he showed the properties that were already up to the curve, showed the houses that were very similar and close to each other. These
Okay, let me point something out.
Go ahead.
He mentioned about the existing lots setting precedents for the form-based code, and that's not correct.
Okay.
The existing lots that are there are not up under the form-based code. When they were built on, the form-based code did not exist. So what you're doing now is setting precedents for form-based code going forward. There is no precedence.
There's no precedence.
So that was not correct.
Even even with what we have up here, your point is that the presence and what we created for this form-based code, that even though the properties, I guess we'll say, were grandfathered in because they've already existed, we can't tear them down and redo. So they was there. So
grandfathered in is probably not a correct term for it either. So.
Okay, well, whatever the term may be, Mr. Smith, the thing I was saying is that these new properties that are coming up, or the properties that are being proposed by Mr. Adamson and Mr. Price, it's the form, the fact that it doesn't fall within the form, despite of what's going on around it and what's already existing there, the look of it, it's the understanding that it is not falling into form-based code. Is that what you don't agree with? That if in the MLK community, if anything that has to be redeveloped, you want it to fall within the lines of form-based code, point blank and period?
Well, no, you can't say point blank, or you wouldn't have a process for getting exemptions. You know, you have a form-based code, and then if someone has an exemption that they need to make to it, they make their case for it. Part of them making their case is justifying what they're doing. I think in the form-based code, it say that they have to demonstrate a hardship not created by the applicant. Well, if you buy a property that's not big enough to put 3 houses on, and then you want to change it around and get exemptions to make it fit, you are creating that hardship. And that's one of the things the form-based code is against.
No.
So I'm just like Carol mentioned, we want to see development there because a lot has been vacant.
Right.
And it's hard for me to believe, I'm not an architect, as big as that lot is, to think that you can't put 2 houses on it, you know?
So you would be okay with 2 houses on it, not 3?
I'm not in a position to say that because I don't know what the 2 houses would look like. I have to see it. I'm strictly going by what's in the form-based code and what we're looking at now.
And I think that
I can't dictate what they need to put on the property.
Right, you can't. I guess that's why we have discussion, and that's why we got to have open discussion with each other to try to come to some type of resolution. But I do understand you want things to fall in line with this form-based code, and it's too many variances. This is not falling in place with that. And even though the existing properties that are there kind of, they do fall in place and look like what he's building.
They were not up under the form-based code when they were built.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
And all right, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
Mr. Price, did you offer Mr. Smith or anybody a site showing 2 properties there instead of 3? Did y'all ever visit that?
We did not, no, sir, out of that. One other thing that, if I might, just as a point of reference, when the Form-Based Code Board voted, they voted all conditions in one case. Instead of breaking these out, there was merit that was discussed that day where they, I think, again, I don't want to speak for the board, of course, but where I think they would have passed some of these requests, but when they took it in totality, they voted it down. And again, as I stated earlier, without some relief, you can't build two. So I'm not advocating two, of course, but I'm just simply stating that irrespective, there has to be some sort of relief to do something here on the property, given the small dimensions that this property, these two lots have.
Thank you.
You good, Councilman? Councilman Gilbert?
John, come here for a minute.
Yes, sir.
When we made form-based code or any other program that we put in place, pilots, I call them pilots, we do recognize that we're going to adjust it sometimes. Sometimes we won't adjust it, correct?
We do, as you know, we had a big set of changes for the annual review that recently came through, and we continue to update the code on a regular basis, just like the rest of our zoning ordinance.
Because I know in one area that we seen that it was set a certain way, but we had to go back and adjust because the waiver setback was way in the back. You know what I'm speaking of?
Yep.
And we had to make the adjustment to that code, correct? So then you're going back to the characteristics of what we're looking at now. Yes, these houses that was grandfathered in, but at the end of the day, they still like the house that he's trying to build.
Right.
That's how I'm looking at it. So, Mike Price, I need to speak to you now.
Yes, sir.
Mike, how many, you say there's about 11 houses that kind of fit the characteristics of the house he's proposing?
If I might, I would go to this. When you look at the homes, for instance, on 10th Street, and you look at the proximity of how these homes sit adjoining each other, then you go back to look at what we're proposing with the three homes, you see that there's a lot more separation between the homes. Again, this is a relatively speaking in terms of separation because you're looking at some 22 feet between lots 1 and 2, and you're only looking at 13 feet between 2 and 3. So, and you're pulling them in keeping with the houses up on Fairview Avenue. So I think it is dense, but it also balances that with some green space that we thought was appropriate to try to accomplish.
The frontage footage is I'm looking at what, 58, 46, 46?
Those are the square footages that you see. Those are the lot sizes. So essentially, we're 400 square feet short on lots 1 and 2, or a 20 by 20 area. That's all the difference it is between meeting the requirement or not meeting the requirement.
And you have houses currently in this particular area that fits that same description, correct?
We have plans, yes, sir, that have been developed. As a matter of fact, when we first looked at this, we were looking at a 5-foot rear setback, and we felt that that was too close, so we chopped 4 feet off of the buildings, shortened them up, and then we requested the front setback to pull them forward. We would have gone to like a 5-foot setback, but we didn't see that that was necessarily quite in keeping with the area that 7 seemed to be the number.
I know you've been an engineer for a long time, and you've probably seen a lot of development, and you also see some tweaks in development, correct?
Yes, sir.
That would fit what the people's kind of asking for, but not quite, in a sense. For like these houses now, you got some grandfather houses already there that fits similar to what we try and propose to build.
If you were to try and achieve, for instance, still leaving the 7-foot setback there along Fairview, and let's say that we go to the 25-foot rear setback and we don't ask for a variance there. So in other words, we're going to chop these houses down in terms of the depth. The only way that you could achieve a suitable square footage and floor plan that would work, you'd have to do 3 stories. The problem with going with 3 stories, that's not in character with the area. So that's why we looked at trying to stay at the 2 stories and going for the variances. That was the reason that we looked at the floor plans and the layout that you see before you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Burrs?
Okay, what I'm trying to get, all right, I'm going to get it in a different way. What about these three that you're proposing is out of character with what already exists?
The only thing, to me, that in looking and investigating the area and looking at the proposed plan that we developed, the only thing that would be quote unquote out of character in my mind is the 25-foot to 9-foot rear setback. Everything else falls in character.
That's what I'm thinking. Actually, the front lots are twice the size in some cases of the ones facing 10.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's the difference between the rear and the lots behind them?
The lot that we back up to, that's the side of that particular home that's there facing 10th Street, so you're facing the side. So that's why we looked at coming in through there and putting in, because we were requesting the reduction, coming in through there and placing the screening there adjoining to that home that's there today. That's how we came up with trying to fit houses in there that are deep enough and appropriate enough to get what you need, but balance that with a setback in the rear.
So it's the rear setback that's the only thing that's out of
In
compliance
my mind,
with what's already there?
In that area, yes, ma'am. That's my opinion.
Okay, Mike, are you all putting in these sidewalks and trees? Or
Yes,
are
ma'am.
they there?
No, we would be placing all of those.
Okay, so on Fairview, the sidewalks don't exist now?
Let's just say that I wouldn't want to walk them.
The space is there, but they're a
The
little
space
rough.
is there to build the sidewalks, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you. Ma'am, could I ask you a question, please, if you don't mind? Okay, you said this is not what we want in our area. And so which part of it is not what you want?
Well, I'm speaking for myself, but there's also been quite a number of emails going back and forth on the neighborhood side
Sure.
regarding this. So one of the issues, probably one of the predominant issues, is the fact that the existing home that would be adjacent to these properties would be only 9 feet. Their side windows would be literally 9 feet from the backs of these buildings.
So it's the rear setback again?
It's rear setback. I don't personally have a problem with the houses fronting Fairview, but a number of neighbors have been very concerned about that. They are concerned that the parking would be inadequate because typically this is an area where a lot of houses go in that students live in, so there's multiple people in the homes, and there's just never enough parking for them.
Okay.
That is a fairly narrow street. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm very familiar with it.
And so if they try to park on Fairview, it's going to create a big hardship for the people in the area. I have enough trouble coming out of Fairview onto 10th Street to get to my home because usually the parking obscures being able to see around, and cars go relatively quickly up and down 10th Street. I spoke to some neighbors who live on the other side of the alley. There's a very old home that's being renovated now, and it literally comes right up to the alley. It was already there, so it didn't get moved to account for form-based code. But there's also some houses on the other side of that property that front 11th, and those homeowners who could not be here tonight were very concerned about the traffic in and out of the alley and being able to get in and out easily with this development there.
But 2 houses would be okay on this lot for people.
Yeah, I think what
It's
what
the
I would
same-
like to see.
That's what I'm having trouble holding on to. 3 houses with all these drawbacks is not okay, which is a setback. But 2 houses, you'd have the same setback.
Well, I don't know, though. I mean, what if you had a house, and I'm speculating.
And I'm
here.
just asking.
What if you had a house that was facing 10th Street? like all of the other houses on 10th Street face, then you probably wouldn't need that narrow of a setback because the house would be going in the other direction, if that makes any sense.
So you'd have one house facing 10th and one house facing Fairview?
Fairview
If it
or
were
the
two
alley.
houses? Or the
And
alley?
I think you've got more room to spread out is what I'm saying. So there's more room for green space and adequate parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Byrd?
Do anyone have anything else to say?
You're it.
I think we always ask the community to come up and speak, and that's the part of neighborhood associations, because you live in this community, you work in this community, and you play in this community. Mr. Price, I do think what you put together, you did try to accommodate and make this as nice as possible. I do commend you on that, but I do understand with the enormous amount of emails and phone calls that I did get that the community just don't want it. So with that, I motion to deny the appeal.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Councilwoman Coonrod? We already have a motion and a second to deny. We'll have to hear that motion first. Is there any further lights? I see none, so I'm going to call the question on the motion to deny. Motion and second to deny. All those in favor?
You said a roll call. She asked for a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Yeah, absolutely. Madam Clerk, let's start with a roll call. Yep, Madam Burrs.
May I ask what
got
a
my
yes
screen
vote
right here, I got
means?
no-
What a yes vote means and what a no vote means?
Yes means you are in favor of the denial.
Say, hold on, sir. You said yes means you're in favor of the denial.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Burrs.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Coonrod. Gilbert. Henderson.
Yes.
Ledford. Mitchell.
Yes.
Oglesby.
No.
Smith.
No.
So that's 5 no.
That does not mean it is approved. It just means the denial has been denied. So at this time,
I'll make a motion to approve.
I now have a motion and a second to approve. Madam Clerk, let's do a roll call. Let's start with Councilwoman Burrs. This is a motion to approve.
Burrs.
Yes.
Byrd.
Okay, let me make sure that I'm doing the right. So I'm saying no to the approval, correct?
If you say no, it is to the approval.
Ain't no.
Coonrod. Gilbert.
Yes.
Henderson. No. Ledford. Yes. Mitchell.
No.
Oglesby. Yes. Smith.
Yes.
Yes, that's 6 yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're going to move on to committee reports. Councilwoman Burrs.
No report, sir.
Councilman Byrd. No report, sir. Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilman Gilbert.
No report.
Councilman Henderson. No report. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting today, and we will have another one in 2 weeks after the agenda session.
All right, Councilman Oglesby. No report. All right, thank you all. That brings us to the point of our agenda, a recognition of persons wishing to address the council on non-agenda matters. Is there anybody here this evening that would like to address the council? Yes, sir. I see 1, 2, 3. Mr. Attorney, would you read the rules, please?
Sure. These rules are applicable to anyone wishing to address the council on a matter that is not on the regular agenda. You have to come to the microphone, only recognized up at the microphone. You can only address the council upon legislative or quasi-judicial matters that are within their authority. You have to limit your remarks to 5 minutes unless additional permission for additional time is provided. Don't use vulgar or obscene language. Don't personally attack or personally denigrate others. And the chair is prohibited by council rule from recognizing anyone who may want to speak to the council during non-agenda matters portion more than twice in a 30-day time period. And I don't believe you're on the list, sir. You're welcome to go.
My name is Ezra Harris, and I'm president of the Woodmore Neighborhood Association, and we're here to present a plan to Councilman Gilbert on the memorial for the Woodmore 6. These are our preliminary plans, and we just want to present that to you and appreciate your time, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, did you have your hand up too? Yes. To speak, please.
So did this lady. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm Louise Hammonds. I'm from Oak Grove community. And I'm here tonight just to give a special thanks to the police department in Chattanooga. Last Wednesday night, I was, two guys held a gun on me, tried to rob me, and stole my car. They responded so fast, and this happened at 11 o'clock, and by 10 after 1, they had my car back. So they were so good. They took the keys to my house. They went and searched my house. I've never got treated any better anywhere than I did. We should all stand behind our police department. We got the best in the country. I appreciate Tim Barnes and the burglary department, every patrolman that was out there. You know, I'm 80 years old now, so I need them out where I live. But I was able to go home and go to sleep and not worry about it. They told me they had everything under control, and I think they have the hardest jobs of anybody in Chattanooga. And they do the best job, and we should always hold them up, criticize them, pray for them, and be proud of what we got in Chattanooga. And I thank Mr. Roddy for the job he's doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hammonds. Ms. McCauley, was that your hand?
I'm Teresa McCauley, 1615 Reed Avenue, District 7. Good evening, council members. As you know, I've been interested in pilots for many years and have spoken to you on pilots many times in the past. I was so pleased when I heard that our city administration intended to be open and transparent. 2 years ago, in March 2016, I asked the council for the policies on pilots. I have yet to hear anything. Over a year ago, a council member requested the policies and procedures for pilots. Hopefully, each of you have received the answer to this request. To date, I am not aware that the public has received a report on the policies for pilots. I was very pleased to see a very detailed account of the procedures, but I cannot find the same detail for the policies. Policies determine the criteria on who gets a pilot and what happens if the terms of the pilot are not met. For instance, the policies outline clawback language. Are pilots for the benefit of the citizens of the city or for the developers? When does the city respond to citizens or council request? If the council receives their answer, how does the public find out in a timely manner? Hopefully, it is not the day of the only meeting hopefully it is not the day of the only meeting when the public can comment. And I'm very concerned about one of the issues that's coming up, I think, for a vote next week. And the public doesn't know what's going on yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McCollum.
Let me see if I can make this microphone work. Good evening. I'm Franklin McCauley, District 7, 1615 Reed Avenue. My wife and I have been wondering about the 3 city-owned buildings which are projected to be sold to someone else, we know not who, and what is going to happen to the city employees who were there in those buildings. We are wondering if space in those buildings will then be rented back from a developer who would then probably make more money from Chattanooga taxpayers than they should. Only this afternoon we were informed that you have been told by the mayor's chief of staff that you will be given answers to all these questions sometime today. That information, however, will not be in front of the public. And then we understand that you are to vote on these buildings at the regular city council meeting next week. This is very aggravating and frustrating and insulting. The public is not being told what is happening before you have to vote, which leaves us no time to respond if we think a particular idea is a bad idea, as when the present city administration first wanted to sell the parking lot on King Street to a developer for less money than what the city had paid for it 7 years before, and then rent the parking lot back for city employees' use for a tremendous gain to that developer. The citizens of Chattanooga need to know what's going on. As citizens, we rely on you to take our case to Mayor Burke and his administration and not do anything until we are told in a very public arena what is projected for these 3 buildings and why, and let us have a hearing in front of you before you have to vote. I do not know how many times citizens have to say to Mayor Burke and this administration that citizen concerns in the planning of our city are just as important as those of developers. I fear we are seeing a continuation of a statement that normal Chattanooga citizens aren't smart enough, aren't good enough, aren't wise enough to help plan our own city. If this is the administration's thought, it is a mistake. And I hope they will rectify their thinking and include us in making their plans. I appreciate your time.
Good evening, Council. My name is Michael Gilliland. I live at 1816 Ivy Street in Orchard Knob. I am the board chair for Chattanooga Organized for Action, and I wanted to come and publicly support the calls by Accountability for Taxpayer Money regarding the public process and calls for greater transparency. This surplusing of city property is another instance where, as a member of the public, there has been continued calls for a more clear definition of the public interest and to understand what that is and how we're going to evaluate that as a city. The problem, I feel, is that these decisions come to you on a case-by-case instance and case-by-case defining of a public interest. It's so easy to define any public good as the public interest. It's all that needs to be proven. But a better policy that more clearly enumerates what the public interest is, what is the best process for surplusing city property in which we can clearly define what the value is to the city, to residents here. It's going to be important. I would want to see more clearly enunciated policy. And as a side note, I think this also relates to the federally designated opportunity zones for Hamilton County and the city of Chattanooga. My concern being, I know that you all have heard this a number of times, my concern is that the designated areas in Chattanooga to a large degree are already hotspot market areas as opposed to other areas that could have qualified. And it's going to require clearly defined public interest in order to make sure that the resources that are going to support for investment in this project are going to the people that need it, for the neighborhoods and the communities that need it most, not to, again, be a benefit to major investors in the area. So thank you very much for your time.
Ma'am, would you give me just 1 minute? Ms. Hammonds. Ms. Hammonds, would you mind coming back up for just a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have a councilwoman who would like to speak to you. Ms. Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Hammonds, I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. So you called the police, and the police came to help you, right?
They were there in 3 minutes after I called them.
Okay.
It was so fast, you wouldn't believe. Of course, I was scared to death. I had carried a friend home, and I was going back to my car when he ran up behind me and put the gun behind my ear. And he searched my pockets and everything. He threw my phone on the ground, and he forgot to get the phone when he got my car.
So do you live on the District 9 side of Oak Grove or District 8?
Ma'am?
Do you live on the District 9 side or the District 8?
8.
You live on District 8 side.
Mm-hmm.
So now when you called the police, you telling me that they didn't use excessive force while they was trying to help you. It wasn't anybody recording the great things that was happening so we can go Facebook Live, or did they try to rough you up or put you in the car and maybe, I'm really being funny when I say that, because we have so many people that come stand in front of the podium and only talk about the negative things or how the perception of the things that the police are doing with the use of force and so on and all the other stuff, but they never once come and share the great things that the police department is doing, so I appreciate that.
Well, let me tell you, I've worked in the neighborhood association. I was the president for 25 years. And I've lived in my community 55 years. And I won't move anywhere else. I love it there. But I have not got one bad thing to say about our police department. In all the years I've lived there, they've always been there if I needed them. They've been so good till I have a son-in-law in Atlanta that says he don't worry about me because we have the Chattanooga Police Department.
Well, thank you so much for that.
I have nothing. They're great. They're great.
Now, do you mind if I record you Facebook Live saying that so we can get all these viewers of all the great things? No, thank you. Seriously, I appreciate that.
Yeah, they're great. I am really proud to be here to have the police force we've got.
Thank you. Councilwoman Burrs, did you have something to add?
Yeah. I want to respond or ask a question about a couple of things that were said. Teresa, I'm a bit concerned, and Councilman Ledford, or maybe that's the city attorney, I believe our policies relative to pilots have been up for a while. Is that not correct? I know we have procedures, but
we have adopted certain policies as to pilots on here. I guess the issue that Ms. McCauley is saying is that we need to be a little bit further on some of our procedures here. We have specific procedures as to how the process of an application for a pilot is filed, and those are.
Well, wait just a minute. You said you got procedures.
The procedures, and I have heard a very detailed, clear presentation on the procedures, how you go about. But what I'm interested in is the criteria for the policies and what happens if the the criteria
clawback
is not met.
And that's what I know I've seen. We've talked about clawbacks. We've talked about all of that.
Where would I find it?
That's what I'm asking.
Those policies, I know, have been drafted depending on which board is involved here. I know that the Health, Education, and Housing Facilities Board does have those requirements on here, and I thought that they were available to the public.
All right,
Well, Councilman Ledford, I remember you're requesting policies. Have you received a report of the policies? I thought you requested, oh gosh, well, it was a while back because I haven't been to a meeting in, I bet 9 months. But I remember you're requesting, you wanted to see what the policies were. And if you got your answer to that, I don't know, and I certainly don't know where to find them. I hope they're there because we need them.
I think they are there, and because I know I've seen them, and it started several years ago when we talked about nailing down when does a clawback occur. So if you could please let her know exactly where they are. It's not procedures, it's the policies that are the underpinning.
The underpinning.
All right, I know they're
the
there.
criteria.
I think that's a very good question, and they do exist. I've seen them, and we approved them, as a matter of fact, and this has been a couple of years, and we were refining procedures. Our minutes show that. So.
Well, I hope that this is true, but I feel like as a citizen, I should be able to find it.
You're right.
Easily.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. And so I think it's a matter of communication, and we need to be more clear about policies and procedures.
I really appreciate your remarks. Thank you
Sure.
very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Ma'am.
My name is Maria Smith. I live at 1340 Michael Lane in Hickson, which is District 2. And I'm going to read a prepared statement. Good evening, council members. I'm here tonight to ask the council to support and protect our city's soccer team, the Chattanooga Football Club. Chattanooga Football Club recently completed its 10th season, earning a 7th conference championship and demonstrating our homegrown soccer team can compete with teams from cities across the country, large and small. But with this achievement has come the attention of outsiders seeking to bring into the scenic city a new soccer franchise of the soon-to-be-established USL Division III League. This new soccer franchise is attempting to plunder Chattanooga Football Club's successes and become the primary or possibly sole soccer tenant in Finley Stadium. USL soccer franchises are typically required to obtain exclusive or highly favorable stadium agreements that would effectively force Chattanooga Football Club out of its 10-year home. Chattanooga Football Club is not just a soccer team where families go to watch soccer on beautiful summer evenings. CFC is a part of our community. They started the CFC Academy, which allows young soccer players in the Chattanooga area to reach their highest potential. The CFC Foundation funds Operation Get Active, which works through Chattanooga schools using soccer to encourage young Chattanoogans to live active, healthy lifestyles. The foundation also funds similar efforts through Chattanooga Sports Ministries, whose goal is to inspire young adults to mentor at-risk youth through soccer. Finally, the foundation supports the Highland Park Commons, consisting of 6 professional-grade futsal fields for use by the Chattanooga community. CFC is not simply a sports team working to make money for Chattanooga, but a force for good, investing in Chattanoogans and making Chattanooga a better place. There is no guarantee an outside investor halfway across the country will spend his soccer profits here in Chattanooga, investing in the community the way CFC has done for the past 10 years. I come before you tonight asking members of the City Council to join us in protecting the homegrown soccer experience that continues to be a beacon of pride for our community. Because of the revenue generated from hosting Chattanooga Football Club, Finley Stadium has operated at a profit every year of CFC's occupancy. This consistent and growing revenue eliminated the need for annual payments from this council to cover the stadium's budgeting shortfalls. I ask this council to instruct the Stadium Corporation that oversees Finley Stadium to remain committed to the long-term success Chattanooga Football Club has demonstrated and to not gamble our city's resources on the risky promises of an unproven sports franchise that has yet to establish a league or even play a single game. I urge this council to continue to stand with Chattanooga Football Club, just as the many families this council represents have stood with CFC on summer nights in Finley Stadium these past 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Helen Burns Sharp. I live at 129 Walnut Street, District 8, representing Accountability for Taxpayer Money, ATM. We're a public interest advocacy group that looks at tax incentives and government transparency. What I wanted to speak about tonight is the pilot program, and I understand what Councilwoman Burrs was saying, because you have adopted policies for pilots, but for housing pilots. That's what you did a couple of years ago, and we have two distinct pilot programs here. Housing, which used to be run through River City and now is run in-house and goes through the Health and Ed Board, and the jobs pilots, which go through the Chamber of Commerce and go to the IDB. So we do have pilot policies, but they are for housing. So one of the things I wanted to do, first of all, I want to say that ATM is not against all tax incentives. Our sort of basic perspective is that we need tax breaks in our toolbox, but that we need to be strategic and we need to reserve them for projects where there's significant public benefit and where the project likely would not have happened did we not give a tax incentive. I wanted to give you some statistics. This is not new. Well, some of this has been updated, but this has been on the ATM website, but I want to explain why we think this is a big deal. Our jobs pilot program has been around since about 1985. The city and county have approved about 100 pilots since that time. About $400 million in property tax revenue will not be collected because of these pilots, some of which last as long as 30 years. In the last fiscal year alone, $26 million in city and county property taxes were abated. According to a report done by a state agency, this is the largest amount forgiven by any Tennessee county, including the 3 urban counties that are larger than Hamilton. The city gets almost 60% of its general fund revenue from property taxes. When our city and county governments approve pilot agreements, the businesses pay dramatically less property tax. This arrangement raises both tax equity and social justice concerns. Why should homeowners and small businesses pay their fair share of taxes and also pay for the services, fire, police, etc., for these companies? Is it appropriate for government to be picking winners and losers? What about high-priority community projects these uncollected tax dollars could be used for? Mayor Burke announced that we have only clawed back one time, even though a number of companies likely have not met their commitments on jobs, wages, and investment. The one clawback was for Alstom, where the city and county agreed to settle for less than half of what the city's outside counsel said we were due. A typical business spends less than 2% on state and local taxes, yet we seem to be easily convinced that they would not locate or would relocate if they do not get a tax break. The city and county have never adopted policies to evaluate pilot applications. This is highly unusual for a city of our size. We had hoped that the 2017 council initiative led by Councilman Ledford would produce some meaningful policies. We were disappointed to see the watered-down document on pilot procedures that recently came back to council after a year-long review by the mayor's administration. We were disappointed to learn that the city council is apparently okay with that outcome. this issue matters to a lot of Chattanoogans. What can we do to convince the City Council to take it seriously? Thank you.
My name's Cecily Roman, and I live in East Lake, the Faust area. And I want to invite all of you to take a ride down Dodds Avenue. I have spoken to you before about this. It is, the tracks are coming out from the old trolley. It's full of potholes. It's full of these humps. Even for law enforcement, the fire department to take it. I mean, you can't even go the speed limit, it's so bad. We have to go under. I do agree with the suicide lane in the center, but everybody's worried about Rossville Boulevard. I do appreciate the sidewalks near Rossville, but how about paving the street? We have talked about this in community meetings. We have called the city 311, but I would like to invite you and see if you can make it to fourth gear. Because it's horrible. Even the fire department has told us they can't. The police can't go on a call and, you know, excuse me, gun it because of it's so bad. Have any of you taken Dodds Avenue between Rossville Boulevard? Yep. To maybe 23rd Street and then 23rd to, let's headed towards Memorial, because that's what I do. I'm a medical interpreter and I volunteer at Memorial in the hospitals, and sometimes I have to go and I can't make it to 6th gear. It's so bad. It's pathetic, and we're told that they're looking at it, that Mr. Burke agreed to increase the budget, but how about the repairs? All I see are little patchworks where the trolley tracks came out until a couple of city vehicles got injured. They don't care about us, and you know, and I want all of you to try to get this. We really want this road repaved or something done with it. And that's all I have to say, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on that.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Tom Kunish. I'm in District 8, and I live in 209 Morningside Drive in Ferger Place. Very nice place. My daughters are starting, well, one has started school at CGLA last week and is in the soccer group there, soccer team, and the other two are starting at Eastside tomorrow. And we've had a really interesting time this summer going over vocabulary words and trying to expand their knowledge of words and also of civic education. And this is all regarding the economic and community development declaring surplus, the 3 properties. And I was trying to tell my daughters what surplus meant. And to me, it means when the building, in this case buildings, is not used anymore, or when you have more than enough. I have not seen any explanation for these 3 buildings to be declared surplus. I don't know what the definition is that the City Council is using. So my request tonight is to ask the City Council for a definition of surplus, for an explanation of how much use is being made. What is the vacancy rate of these 3 buildings, and where is the economic analysis that citizens can see that would have us agree or disagree with you? I'm trying to teach my kids that the decisions that City Council makes, that all of us make, should be reasonable, should be rational, and that we should have the information, we should know what the words mean, surplus. We should know why the city is proposing to transfer ownership from inside the city from one entity to the other, and why these buildings aren't going to be used in the same way and how they will be used differently. I have not seen that information anywhere. And I'm wondering, do you have it? And if so, can we see it? Thank you.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Well, no. Often, people come up here and they champion for their different roles. Ms. Burnshop champion for the pilot programs and making sure things are right. Mr. McCauley, Ms. Holmes, everyone comes up here, and a lot of times we sit up here and we're listening and we're taking it all in. When you're not at a lot of meetings, ma'am, but at 1:30 we are fighting tooth and nail to get more money for paving. We are trying. It's not enough money to pave all the streets in Chattanooga, but we're trying. This council fights daily, monthly, yearly, trying to make that happen. And I'm sure your councilman and myself, I drive down that road all the time, and you're right. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. You're right. It makes no sense. But I could let you meet a young man in Clifton Hills who will tell you his street is ridiculous. On Wheeler Avenue, Miss Minnie and those community call me daily saying their street is ridiculous. Taylor Street over in East Chattanooga, they will tell you that street is ridiculous. So many people call us saying, fix my street, and their street is more important than others. With the pilot programs, the only pilot I know I had my hands on, I wrapped myself around Ms. Burnshop, was the M&M pilot. They said it was going to bring 110 jobs here to Chattanooga. I know for a fact, I talk and go to that facility. They have hired over 25 people already in that facility, and it started on Father's Day, and they're well on their way to 110 jobs. Me and Miss Donna Williams, we talked, and I said, Ms. Williams, if they don't do what they say they're going to do, will there be any punishment? She was like, yes, we will take that pilot. We will, I don't want to use the word chastise, but we will hold them accountable for what they're doing. I just want people in this room to know that we're not just sitting up here, not listening or taking into your consideration what you're saying. We're taking every word that you're saying to heart. And when we leave this room, we talk to the mayor's staff. We talk to Blythe. We talk to everyone about what's going on in your concerns. So I just want you to know that you are being heard, and please come back and say more to us. And so many times it's hard to get to everyone. District 8 has near 20,000 people in it. And I went to a neighborhood the other day, and the lady said, I ain't never seen you before. And I was like, well, have we ever had a conversation? Or you see me now. What can we do to fix this situation today? If it's something that I need to do, let me know. But I just want you guys to know that we are hearing you, and we do take what you say to consideration, and we appreciate you talking to us. Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Boy, you talk about lighting a fire under his buns. Woo! Thank you, Jesus. But the constituents have all come and addressed some important concerns and questions that we on the council had asked to, and we were promised that we were going to have those answers today. And again, we have not received those. But Carrie, since you're here, you work closely with Stacy, Mara. You're here, you work closely with those individuals. Can you provide us with some answers? Or when you get those answers, can it be publicly made so the public can hear those things? Can you at least let us know what's gonna happen with the surplus properties? Have it been in front of these boards? What's going on? Because it's making it seem as if the council is just approving these things and we haven't approved anything, and people want answers and we want answers too.
Certainly. I know there's been a number of questions about that, which we certainly intend to reply to in writing so that that is fully public, and everything that's been asked tonight by the community and by you all will certainly be addressed before you're asked to take any action. Well, we don't, because they've not been surplus. Therefore, we're many, many steps away from an RFP being drafted and issued. We're quite a long ways away from having anything even speculatively about what the use may be. But that's sort of the point of having a transparent process about making sure that we can determine that in conjunction with you all before we're at the point of way down the road having an eventual purchaser, if we get to that point at all, for what the next use may be. Well, I certainly, we intend to give you answers, absolutely, and well, we're trying to make sure that we can give you a comprehensive response to all of your questions in writing, so that you have all the information you need before you're asked to vote. It will certainly be a public record once we've certainly. The media can certainly have access to anything that we provide you. There will all be public records, and everything is open and transparent as far as we're concerned.
Ma'am, just a moment. Ma'am, please let us continue, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs.
Once again, we do have policies for jobs. Home serve that just got approved in my district, it's way over the quota that it said it would have. I'm trying to figure out again, because we did approve job policies. I know we did. We have them for homes and we have them for jobs. So if people don't know that, then what do we need to do to make it more available for them to see? Because we did it in conjunction with the chamber and with the county, but with jobs, it was the chamber. We have the full reports about how we should, why we should approve them and how they comport with policies. And I'm not understanding, I know it's in our minutes, I'm not understanding why folks can't get hold of them. So I need some help here. Well, so where do they find them?
I was reviewing my emails to try to make sure if it was something that I was not aware of. I noticed that there was a pilot procedures document that was prepared as of July the 17th. At that point, that document, I don't know if it has been finalized or not. As soon as that has been finalized, it is available. I know that in effect for a number of years, there have been provisions for the Health, Education, and Housing Facilities Board on their pilots because I deal with that board.
Right.
I was not involved with the Industrial Development Board. So that's the issue I'm trying to make sure whether they are.
Okay, well, I know that it was based on those that we did the GE clawback. I mean, I know they exist. It's just if we could please make them available to folks, because I know we voted on them. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Councilwoman, I think that is something that we need to task our clerk with, in collecting those and making sure that they are available on the website in any other fashion that may be necessary, or even by printed request, should they come to our office. So if you wouldn't mind making sure that that's taken care of this week, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else that would like to address the council? We are adjourned.